Thanks for clicking on my video. Today we're going to be doing some technical analysis for the SPY, Qs, Tesla, Apple, NVDA, maybe a couple others. But right now I need to make sure you're on the right video, okay? So if you're watching this video on Wednesday night or Thursday morning, you are one video behind, okay? So you want to get my latest video, it's going to be down there in the description. Now the markets keep ripping lower and lower, and we're trying to find a little bit of a bounce. And maybe today we got a small signal that can show us that we have an 85% chance of a bounce in the next 2 days. That signal is the VIX, and we did get a closing bar above our 200. And if you were subscribed, we've been talking about in order for the VIX to go ballistic, you need to first close above the 50, and that signaled for the big drop that we had a couple days ago. And then the next step is we need to close above the 200, and that's exactly what happened. There's not much topping tail, so this thing can go ballistic. The other side to that coin is the VIX is up by 10%. Okay, when the VIX is up by 10%, that means there's an 85% chance of an up day within the next 2 trading days. So that means tomorrow or Thursday, we actually could see a green day. That does not mean it's a reversal. That just means we could get some kind of feeble bounce to then tear us one more time down to the downside. And before I say this, I'm going to repeat, we are above the 200. We got that daily close. So this thing could keep tearing to the downside, and the VIX could explode past 20 tomorrow. But right now, one thing that we have going for us, if you're looking for a bounce, is we have these highs here that are giving us this little line here, and then we are getting a divergence on the MACD and the RSI. So this is something I'm noticing on the 2-hour chart. It just means to me that there is potential for us to get some kind of bounce, especially with that 85% chance of us getting some kind of bounce in the next 2 trading days. One thing we need to happen in order to get that bounce is we need this 10-year yield that's been ticking up for quite some time, and we just crossed this high here, leading us into the unknown, where we told you if you're subscribed, that is where everyone is going to be fearful. So it makes sense that we are selling off so rapidly because we're up in this area. But if we zoom in just a little bit, we can see that we actually today, with a topping candle, actually touched the top of this channel, and maybe that is enough to give us that small bounce over the next few days. I wouldn't bank on it at this point. It is very, very bearish, but just because we will need some kind of pullback at some point from this downfall, we would want this to come back down and possibly retest this high that we previously crossed, and then maybe it starts to head to higher levels. Those rates still could just go higher tomorrow because TLT has not hit my price target of 88.14, and it doesn't have to if I start to see reversal from here, but it would make sense for TLT to want to come down to there, meaning yields pop a little bit higher, and then we possibly start to see a reversal. It would also make total sense because it's so far out of its Bollinger Band and it is so far away from its moving averages. It would make total sense for it to want to come and reconnect with one of those moving averages, maybe come down one more time, and then we start to see that reversal take place. Firstly, on the SPY, I just want to say the VIX is above its 200, and it got a daily close with no kind of topping tail or anything. It looked pretty strong. So that means that the VIX can go ballistic, and we can see an actual crash start to happen, okay? But overall, right now, we are outside of our Bollinger Band. We are well away from our moving averages, and we're actually coming into this nice support that goes all the way back to October 2022. Now, I have this green line here at 424.35 drawn up. It's just a gap resistance level from before that I felt like lined up with this line really well. And we could come down and dink into our support here, and then maybe we start to see a couple of green candles come in. We are outside of our monthly move for September. That is this thick yellow line, so it would make sense for us to want to, or at least for market makers, to push this price back up into this area before the close on Friday. I just personally would just tell you, I would not be shorting here, okay? You're outside the Bollinger Band. You already missed the move. So if you wanted to short on this move, this candle right here would have been your entry most likely because of that break of our triangle. We got confirmation to the downside. Right now, if you are trying to short, you're looking for some kind of bounce and you see reversal, and then maybe we cut this low and break out of this, then you can start looking for more downside. Now, if we are looking for some kind of bounce, we can look for divergences and things like that. And we actually do have one on the 30-minute. I would not pay attention to 5 or 15 because you're going to see divergences all over those in a crash scenario, and they can really fake you out. Kind of like this bar did to me, but thankfully I'm looking for a bounce to play more downside. But we do have these lows, low, and a lower low, and then we do have a low and a higher low, and that proves itself as well on the RSI. So there is potential for a bounce, but we need some kind of good news, okay? This can't just bounce on its own. It can correct itself out of oversold conditions by just like bouncing up very feeble, doing this, and then we break, okay? So we need some kind of good news, and we'll have to look into what news is coming up for tomorrow. For tomorrow, we do have the durable goods orders month over month, and that's supposed to actually, it previously came in at negative 5.2, and it looks like we're forecasted at negative 1.4%, and consensus on that is negative 0.5%. So maybe if this number comes out as good for the market, you can see we have a ton of data coming out, and then we have GDP on Thursday. So we do need some kind of good move behind these divergences in order to actually give us some kind of actual feasible bounce. But even though we're outside of that Bollinger Band, we do have some divergence. We need that good news because right now the Qs, they are not outside of its monthly move for September. So we actually could see the Qs by the end of the week hit right down in here. And that would be pretty wild. That would be very, very bearish, very big crash, actually. That's just what it would be. But we are extremely oversold, okay? As we go into the 30-minute on this, you see something very similar down here. We do have that divergence as well on the Qs here with these lows. So that might be enough to spring us up to fill a couple of gaps. Probably we're just going to maybe fill this gap for an actual good bounce, I would say. Right now, it's so bearish that if you do not get any good news and this tries to bounce, it is most likely going to just touch somewhere up into here and then fall back to the downside. Thankfully, in yesterday's video, I did mention Apple, and I said it looks like it wants to turn around, but all that bad news just flipped us right over. So we did say we were looking for a break of this channel here. We've kind of been stuck in a range, so we've been looking for a break to the upside or the downside, and we did break to the downside. And the next big hurdle, considering you're at this low, you need to take that out firmly, and then we need to get out of this support zone, okay? If this breaks out of this support zone and doesn't buy back up within one day, you are definitely going to go touch that 200. But right now we are seeing possibilities of a bounce. Maybe this comes to the bottom tomorrow and we do see some kind of green day, maybe another green day, and then we can rip to the downside. But I'm not going to speculate too much. I am just following price at this point. I'm waiting for a bounce so that I can actually take a trade because I'm not going to short at these levels. Now, Tesla looks pretty bearish just like everything else. So I just wanted to show you guys this big triangle that I have drawn here. Okay, it's between these lows and the high up in 2021. So we've been going in this triangle for quite some time, and we could still see this triangle continue to play out. But what I believe will most likely happen from here, if we don't get that bounce, is we are going to come to the bottom of this triangle, and maybe we get one more bounce up, and then we start to break this triangle to meet up with our 200. Now, Amazon right now is down 13% without getting any kind of meaningful bounce, I would say, but we have not approached those oversold conditions on the RSI on the daily, so we could see further downside, and maybe this wedge fully plays out towards that 118.50 that I was targeting. Overall, we see this gap above us, and within 5 days, there's an 80% chance that that gap will be filled within 5 trading days. Hey, tomorrow's your 5th day, so you need this thing to come up and fill. But we do have a chance for this to come and bounce up to this level before we see more downside. But we do need that good news in order for that to happen. If that good news does not come out and we start to cleanly break these lows here, there's not much holding you up in here, okay? So right at this 118.50 is probably where you're going to see any kind of bounce. We see that potential for the bounce in the next 2 trading days, with the VIX telling us that at these lows in here, okay, low, lower low, we have a low to a higher low, okay? So we do have that chance, but you need that news behind it, because if we don't get that news behind it, you literally could see a bounce, and it could just pop up to this channel and start to break. We could actually break that and come up into prior resistances here, and then we break to the downside again. That would be those very feeble bounces. So you do want some good news behind a bounce if we get one in the next 2 trading days. NVIDIA did hold up better, but right now we were paying attention to this left shoulder head and possibly a right shoulder forming in the near future. I don't know exactly if that's going to happen. As I go into an hourly chart, I'll show you guys why. But right now, you just want to be paying attention. Is this neckline going to break? Is this, well, I guess, is this trend line? It's not necessarily a full-on neckline yet, but is this trend line going to break? And if it does break, we could possibly see this and a retest, and then we go towards that 200 right around that 320 price. Sorry, dog was barking. But we also could, in the bullish case, or I guess semi-bullish case, we could see that start to come up into these areas and possibly fill this gap to then make us a right shoulder. And then we can start to see that play to the downside. There is a bullish case for NVIDIA, okay? NVIDIA does have a couple of highs here that we can reconnect. And you can see NVIDIA make another plunge to the upside if you can get this daily to fully rotate over and take back the 50. If you take back this 50 here, not just touching our gap fill and then falling back off, we want to retake that 50, maybe hold above it for a sec, and then break through this prior high and come up into more future resistance with that little trend up here. The main takeaway from this video is we could get a bounce. The VIX is telling us that there is an 85% chance in the next 2 trading days that we see a green candle. That doesn't mean that it is a reversal. It means that it could just be a feeble bounce to then get us out of oversold conditions to pull us to the downside one more time. And we want to be careful with that bounce because the VIX is above its 200. It got that full daily green bar close above the 200, which means it has the gas now to absolutely go ballistic. Thanks for watching my video. Be very careful out there, okay? And good luck trading tomorrow. Peace.